Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jessica Ward King, the StigmaCrusher here. If you're new here, a special welcome. Remember to hit that subscribe button before you leave and the notifications bell so that you are notified each and every week when I post. So I was recently diagnosed with IBS-C, that's irritable bowel syndrome constipated type. Yes, you now know more than you ever cared to know about my elimination habits, but nonetheless, it was the inspiration for the video this week. So in my journey to being diagnosed with IBS, I was told more than once that it's all in my head. Because IBS is really a diagnosis that is based on eliminating all the other diagnoses, no pun intended. You check to see if it's celiac disease, you check to see if it's polyps in the colon, you check to see if it's, all of these things. And once it's none of these other things that you can do blood tests for and you can do scans for, you come to the conclusion that the diagnosis is IBS. And then there are medications to try. And if those medications work for you, then you can pretty much say that, yes, the diagnosis was correct. And so in this journey, I got sent to many, many different doctors. And at certain points, because I do have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, so I do have mental illness, it was suggested that perhaps, these stomach upsets that I was having were psychological in nature somehow. Now, that's a really interesting thought because we know medically that the gut is actually the second brain. Now think of this. Outside of the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, the largest concentration of neurons and neurotransmitters in the whole body is in the gut. It's not in the heart, not in the lungs, not in the organ, it's in the gut. So that is pretty much the whole digestive system, from the esophagus through the stomach, through the upper digestive system, down to the colon. And that whole gut is constantly interacting with the brain. There's actually a direct link that not only goes from brain to gut, so it's not only what you think that affects your gut, but also your gut that affects your brain. So there's a bidirectional relationship between them. And so when a doctor says to me, well, perhaps the pains in your stomach are all in your head, my answer is kind of, yes, but also whatever's in my head is a pain in my stomach. Let me illustrate why. So let's imagine that you are giving a presentation at school or at work. Or let's imagine that you are an ancient humanoid that is up against a hungry saber-toothed tiger. Whatever the stress, your body doesn't know the difference. And your body needs to fight, flee, or freeze, right? The fight or flight response. The adrenaline starts pumping, the neurotransmitters start going. And the last thing that your body needs to be doing is spending energy digesting your last meal, whether that was McDonald's or another hungry saber-toothed tiger that you last ate, doesn't matter. Your body does not need to be spending its energy digesting. All of the energy from your digestive system goes to your muscles, mostly your leg muscles, your lungs, your heart, so that you can run away or flee or freeze or hide or whatever you need to do. And so you may find when you are now a modern human again that is giving that presentation at work or school, that that morning you can hardly eat. You may find that your mouth is dry. You may find that you can only eat dry toast. You may find that you have a bubbling stomach, that you have acidity in your stomach. You need an antacid. You may find that you're nauseous. You may even vomit. You may further find that you're constipated or that you have diarrhea. So your whole digestive system, you may find gurgling in your stomach, right? Like the whole digestive system kind of starts to react badly. And it will keep doing so for quite a while, even after the stress has gone. And that's because this very psychological reaction to the stress is very much interacting with the stomach. And this makes sense. So if any of you have kids at home, my child is diagnosed with anxiety disorder. And when he started to exhibit signs of anxiety, he would actually come to us and say that his stomach was sore. And any of you that have kids have probably experienced this, where something happens at school or what happens with one of their friends, but they don't tell you that they're sad or that they're stressed. They tell you that their stomach is sore. And that's not because that is all in their head. Their stomach really is sore. So think of it. If you have this huge concentration of neurons and neurotransmitters in your stomach, and you're saying that anxiety or depression or whatever is an imbalance of neurotransmitters in your brain, it's also causing an imbalance of neurotransmitters in your stomach. And when you're a kid and you can't really identify your emotions, particularly really complex emotions like anxiety, you can identify that your stomach is sore. And it really is. Is it all in your head? The cause might be. The cause might be a psychological one. But let me stop here for a minute. Descartes may have made a split between the mind and the body, but Mother Nature has done no such thing. And so things that are in the realm of the mental affect the physical, and things that are in the realm of the physical affect the mental. And really, there's no difference between the two. It's really just semantics. We talk about mental health and mental illness because we hadn't talked about it in the past in the same breath as physical, and so we're trying to put a concentration on it now. But really, they're the same thing. We also know that medications that treat these chemical imbalances in our brain, that treat our mental illnesses, cause effects in our stomachs. So quite often when you'll start fluoxetine, so Prozac, an antidepressant, or even an antipsychotic or a mood stabilizer, one of the first side effects you'll get is an upset stomach, sometimes nausea, sometimes vomiting, sometimes bubbling stomach, whatever the case is. And quite often as your brain gets used to the medication and your body will get used to the medication, your gut will get used to the medication, and that side effect will go away. Though sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's so persistent that you have to stop the medication, because the same change that you're trying to affect in the brain, you don't get to decide where the chemicals from that medication go. You don't get to say, I am taking this pill and it's going to go straight to my brain and nowhere else in my body. No, of course not. And so just as it changes the concentration of serotonin in your brain, it also changes the concentration of serotonin in your gut, your second brain, and causes very real physical symptoms that are not all in your head. We also know, so going back to my revelation that I have IBS, I decided one day to type it into Google because I do this from time to time. As I mentioned before Christmas, I struggle with chronic migraines, and we actually know that people with bipolar disorder are much more likely, 30% more likely to have migraines than are people that don't have that diagnosis. And so I wanted to check to see, hey, if my second brain is, related to my first brain, maybe my bipolar and my IBS are related. And wouldn't you know it? People with bipolar disorder are 50% more likely to also be diagnosed with IBS than people that don't have that diagnosis. We also know that people with bipolar disorder as well as psychosis are more likely to be obese or to have obesity than people that don't have those diagnoses, even when we correct for things like, the depressive tendency to overeat or not exercise enough. Even when we correct for that, people with bipolar disorder and psychosis tend to have obesity. Even diabetes tends to occur more in people with psychosis and bipolar disorder. So we know that disorders of the gut are also related to disorders of the brain and mind. The problem is that there isn't enough research. We don't know how these two things are related, in what direction, or whether it's in both directions. We don't know how you might be able to use the knowledge that we have about the gut to help people with psychiatric disorders, or even vice versa. We simply don't know enough. The connection between the two is just not researched enough. So what can we do with this information? You might be saying, why are you telling us this, Jessica? Well, because we do know that the gut nutritional, the things that we do for our nutrition and to keep our gut healthy are going to support our mental health and our mental illness. And so when your doctor says that part of your treatment plan is to eat right, he isn't just being a doctor. She isn't just saying that just to be annoying. Your doctor isn't kidding. Keeping your gut and your nutrition healthy is really important in supporting your mental health. There are a variety of nutritional deficiencies that actually will mimic psychiatric disorders. So one of the most common ones is vitamin D deficiency. For those that don't get enough sunlight, those of us in the northern hemisphere that don't get enough sunlight, particularly in the winter months, you can get deficient in vitamin D, and that actually looks very much like depression. People get diagnosed with depression only to find out that they have very low vitamin D, and once that vitamin D goes back up through supplementation, their depression disappears entirely. And there are a variety of different nutritional deficiencies that can mimic different kinds of psychiatric disorders. So keeping your nutrition up is really important. I take a variety of supplements just to make sure that they are not the cause of my depressive or manic symptoms. So things like things to support my thyroid, my vitamin D, my vitamin B12, vitamin E, magnesium, and particularly because I've had a gastric bypass, because like a lot of people with bipolar, I struggle with obesity. So I have to take these supplements to make sure that some of my psychiatric symptoms aren't being caused by a nutritional deficiency. So making sure that you eat well, balanced. That doesn't mean that you can't in moderation indulge. We know that some of the symptoms of mental illness are wanting to comfort eat, right? We know that some of the symptoms of people that are struggling with their mental health, struggling with stress, are wanting to comfort eat or overeat or not eat enough. So we know that it can be a struggle. But making sure that you eat balanced and, with lots of fruit and vegetables, lean proteins, less sugar, less fat, you know the drill. If you don't know the drill, check out your food guide from the country that you live in, or any food guide from any country, since they will tell you good things, and do that to support your gut health. There are also a variety of, you can see a nutritionist. They will help you in terms of any supplementation you might need, probiotics that you might need to be taking to support your gut microbiome. There's even some research that shows that the gut microbiome is changed in people with different mental disorders. And so there might be some ways that you can manipulate that microbiome that are going to support your nutritional and therefore mental health as well. So the two takeaways from this video is, one, it is not all in your head. Your second brain and your first brain are very much interrelated in a bidirectional manner. So that means what affects your brain affects your gut, and what affects your gut affects your brain. And number two, supporting your gut health is absolutely integral to supporting your mental health and mental illness. So take care of yourselves this week. Take care of your nutritional health and your mental health. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.
StigmaCrusher.